Alright, now what I'm going to do, I've got the master cylinder mounted in my bench vise here. It'll be easier to work with as far as working with all these screws and removing clips and everything. So we got her mounted there, and first we need to drain out the brake fluid. So we'll run everything down into a little drainage bucket here. Get all that drained out. Remove the screws from the cover of the master cylinder, and might as well go ahead and disconnect the upper part of the brake line. And we'll take a look inside and see how it looks in there. And we're going to get this clip and washer removed with our circlip wrench, and we'll see what it looks like. Make sure you keep everything together here. We've got, of course, the top cover here. Keep all these guys organized so you know what goes where. Be careful with the heads on the screws. They're easy to strip out. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. Those guys are easy to strip out. Very annoying. I think these are still usable for now, but if they start to get rounded out inside there, you might as well replace them. Becomes nothing but a headache. And these are the countersink types of fasteners too, so just got to stick with that style. And let's take a look in here. We got the fluid we're going to drain out. Like I said, I try to keep my fluid bled in my brakes. Makes a big difference in how your brakes feel. So if this fluid looks really dark and dirty, you definitely should change it out. And you can usually tell by looking in your little window right there. If you can't see in there with the fluid, that means that fluid is done. You should definitely bleed your brakes frequently, depending on how often you ride and how hard you ride. So we're going to drain this out from down here, of course. Got your bleeder. Your bleeder right there, as well as this guy right here. Loosen that out, let all the fluid drain out, and then we'll remove the upper part of the brake line right there so we can get started disassembling. Alright, we get to use my nifty little stand that can hold my camera. It's also my carburetor holding stand. You may have seen in some of my other videos, something I built. So let's start removing some of the hardware on here. And when you're working with brake fluid, I always recommend you get your nitrile gloves on. Brake fluid and skin are not good to mix together. It's not good for your skin at all. So let's get this guy off here with our 14mm. You can just open it first, let it start draining. And we'll let that drain all the way out, and then we'll move on. Something else to look at. I got two brass washers here and here. If you have never replaced those, you probably should now. It just helps prevent leaks from where the brake line meets into the caliper here. It's always good to keep fresh ones on there if you have problems with not being able to get a good seal, or your brakes feel kind of soft and mushy. It's likely that either your brake line needs replacing just from wear and tear, or these two brass washers need replacing, or your bolt needs replacing as well. A lot of brake line kits will come with these. They just get worn out over time. So you see this guy here. Brass washer goes on each side of the brake line mount, like so. I know mine are fairly new, so I'll just keep a hold of mine and reuse them. They've only been on for less than a year, actually. But if you've never replaced yours, definitely do that. All right, back up in our bench vise here. See if we can get this guy focused, looking inside. Down inside your master cylinder, if you've never looked at this before, it's kind of cool. The way everything works, your brake lever would be mounted out here. When you pull it in, it pushes that little piston. Let's see if we can get in here. It pushes in down at the very bottom. You can see that. Down at the very bottom of the bowl here. All the way down here. The little piston starts coming in from underneath here, which will allow fluid to pass back and forth, which is basically how the hydraulic system works. Forces fluid ever so little bit out down here to push your calipers together, and then when you release the brake lever, fluid comes back up, lets the brake pads retract and release. I've never really looked at that either, so it looks pretty cool. And what we're going to do is disassemble. Going to remove the upper brake line right there. It's just the same 14 millimeter. Also the two brass washers. If yours have never been replaced up top, you should definitely replace them now. And then we'll remove this clip. Similar to any circlip right here. Get you some circlip pliers to remove that, and then this washer right here. So we're going to do that now and see what it looks like inside. With our 14 millimeter right here. Again, make sure that you've got your nitrile gloves on. I doubt latex gloves would be able to survive very long Latex gloves are really not so great for working with solvents and fluids. The solvent breaks them down easily, rips holes in them in an instant. So here's our brass washer. Should probably go ahead and replace those if you have not. The other guy there. Our bolt there, if that has not been replaced either, you should probably likely go ahead and do that. All these things will help your brakes just feel better. Over the years, they just get worn, dirty, nasty. You see where the fluid actually comes out of this tiny hole right here. That's how the fluid comes out from your master cylinder. And it looks the same on the other end of the brake line as well. Has another tiny hole just like that. The fluid ever so slightly comes out of there when you push the brake lever in. Hydraulic force. Here's the other end of it. Right here, it's on your caliper. Very similar on both sides. It's just simple hydraulics. Brilliant hydraulics as well, because the old days they used to have cable drum brakes, like in the older cars. Yeah, not so good. Some mini bikes these days still have cable brakes. Not so good. Anyway, make sure all of your fluid is completely drained out of your brake line, as well as all your parts. Just make sure everything is drained fully. And then we'll see if we can get that circlip and washer removed inside there and move on. Now they make a variety of different circlip pliers. You see the very long kind here is what we're going to need, because it is quite a distance down into there to remove that circlip. Of course, they make other kinds here. They make some that pull in when you hit the lever. They make some that pull out when you press it. We're going to need one that pulls in, of course, to remove this clip. This guy here you can get online pretty much anywhere. Very handy, and it's got those little tips on the end right there. We're going to need that to be able to get in here and remove this guy. Let's get our light back on it. Alright, so with our... One of these days I'm going to get bifocals because I can barely see in close range here. Be careful with circlips. You may want to keep your hand over it so it doesn't come flying out of there, hit you in the face. Okay, pull it in gently and remove. Didn't quite get it all the way. You have to push down kind of firmly. You can see everything's starting to come apart in there, so be careful at this point. Okay, you got the clip, got that washer. Both of these will be replaced. Inside there, see that big plunger? That's actually how this all works as far as braking, as far as the hydraulic movement. Let's see if we can demonstrate it here. You can see, pushing it in, and over time there's O-rings in there. They get nasty. This whole mechanism gets pretty nasty. So it's a good idea to, periodically break all this down. Make sure you keep everything separated and organized so that you can clearly tell what goes where when it's time to put it back together. Alrighty, so let's get my pick here. Be careful, because I have never dove in here before. Pull everything out carefully, see what it all looks like. See all that? Got several seals. These seals also will break down over time. So if you have issues with your brakes just not feeling good, notice the small end of this spring here. Of course, will go right there. So it's a good idea to take pictures with your cell phone or whatever, you know, just so it can be obvious when you're pulling it all apart how it's going to go back together. And in which way these seals are facing also. Notice they're facing towards the master cylinder as far as the opening of those. So, you know, make sure you keep that the same, of course, when it's time to reassemble. They look a little, you know, a little washed out, a little nasty. Not horrible, but might as well go ahead and replace them if we've already gone this far. And we're going to clean everything also. I will also clean out inside. Let me get a better light here. Inside there, if you can see inside here, let's take a look in here. It's a first for me as well. Can't really see too well in there. But this region should be cleaned out as well with your, you know, your nylon spiral brush. Should clean all that out. Also be aware there's probably some fluid left in there, brake fluid, so don't get any of that on your hands. Don't get brake fluid on any painted surfaces either. So keep your little bucket handy. Keep everything poured out in there. Okay. Very basic and kind of cool looking. So give everything you see here a good old-fashioned cleaning. There's also seals and whatnot deep inside here. We'll look at our manual, see what of that might need removal or replacing. So once you've gone this deep into it, you might as well replace everything that can be replaced, because we don't want to have to do this again anytime soon. So there you go. We're going to do some cleaning with our spiral brush. Inside there, looking a little nasty. We'll clean that out, clean all this up, and we'll come back. All right, with your assortment of brushes, spiral brushes like these are good for gently cleaning these areas here. Don't get too aggressive, and don't use any metal brushes for that area. In this region here also, where the brake lever goes, it gets crusty right in there too. I used just a brass brush like this. Just put her up in there and just some gentle scrubbing. Now the manual recommends you do not use any solvents in here. Only use clean brake fluid on the new parts as well. So don't go crazy spraying contact cleaner and things like that in here. Just do the best you can to get all this region nice and clean inside. And when you're replacing those cup seals, like we saw on that piston, which is these guys, I haven't replaced them yet. Just use clean brake fluid on these little seals too when you replace them. And if anything looks excessively worn, simply put, just replace them. You can get an entire little kit that has all these parts in them. Not very expensive, but a good idea is to go ahead and swap all that out. You might as well, right? If you've gone this far, that's how I try to do repairs. You know, if I've already gone in deep enough into some sort of repair and I see something that looks excessively worn out or broken or frayed or whatever, you know, you might as well go ahead and replace it. And then you use your compressed air to, you know, gently blow all this out as well. And the next thing we'll do is replace these cups. These are called little cup seals, these black seals right there. Replace those and make sure all this is cleaned off nicely. And get ready to put her back together.